What is hate speech? In common language, hate speech refers to offensive discourse targeting a group or an individual based on inherent characteristics, such as race, religion, or gender, and that may threaten social peace. According to United Nations Strategy and Plan of Action Against hate speech can be conveyed through any form of expression, including image, cartoons, memes, objects, gestures, and symbols, and it can be disseminated offline or online. Hate speech is discriminatory, biased, bigoted, or intolerant or pejorative, prejudiced, contemptuous, or demeaning of an individual or group. Hate speech calls out real or perceived identity factors of an individual or a group, including religion, ethnicity, nationality, race, color, descent, gender, but also characteristics such as language, economic or social origin, disability, health status, or sexual orientation, among many others. Challenges raised by online hate speech. The growth of hateful content online has been coupled with the rise of easily shareable disinformation enabled by digital tools. This raises unprecedented challenges for our societies as governments struggle to enforce national laws in the virtual world's scale and speed. Unlike in traditional media, online hate speech can be produced and shared easily at low cost and anonymously. It has the potential to reach a global and diverse audience in real time. The growing weaponization of social media to spread hateful and divisive narratives has been aided by online corporations' algorithms. This has intensified the stigma vulnerable communities face and exposed the fragility of our democracies worldwide. It has raised scrutiny on internal players and sparked questions about their role and responsibility in inflicting real-world harm. Hate speech versus freedom of speech. The need to preserve freedom of expression from censorship by states or private corporations is often invoked to counter efforts to regulate hateful expression, in particular online. Freedom of opinion and expression are indeed cornerstones of human rights and pillars of free and democratic societies. These freedoms support other fundamental rights such as to peaceful assembly, to participate in public affairs, and to freedom of religion. It is undeniable that digital media, including social media, have bolstered the right to seek, receive, and impart information and ideas. Therefore, legislative efforts to regulate free expression unsurprisingly raise concerns that attempts to curb hate speech may silence dissent and opposition. Indian perspective of hate speech. The right to freedom of speech and expression is guaranteed by Article 19(1)(a) of the Indian Constitution. Article 19(2) enables reasonable limits on free expression when those limitations are necessary to protect India's sovereignty, integrity, security, international relations, maintenance of public order, morality, or in instances involving court disrespect, defamation, or solicitation to commit an offence. The Supreme Court of India in the case of Pravasi Bhalai Sanghatan versus Union of India 2014 has said as much when it stated that the idea of discrimination lies at the heart of hate speech. Its impact is not measured by its abusive value alone, but rather by how successfully and systematically it marginalizes a people. Hate speech is an effort to marginalize individuals based on their membership in a group using expression that expose the group to hatred. Hate speech seeks to delegitimize group members in the eyes of the majority, reducing their social standing and acceptance within society. The Supreme Court of India on April 28 this year directed states to so move to register FIRs on hate speech incidents and proceed against offenders without waiting for someone to lodge a complaint. A bench of Justices K.M. Joseph and B.V. Nagaratna said the court's order would apply to all hate speech makers irrespective of their religion. We direct that states shall ensure that as and when hate speech happens, it attracts offences under 153A, 153B, 295A and 505 of the IPC. So move action shall be taken to register cases even if no complaint is forthcoming. Offenders should be proceeded against under the law. the Supreme Court ordered issuing notice to the states. The bench directed Director Generals of Police in the states to inform their subordinates about the court orders so that appropriate action in accordance with the law will be taken at the earliest. The court said any hesitation on the part of police officers to abide by the order would be viewed as contempt. Earlier in October, the court has said that the constitution envisages Bharat as a secular nation and fraternity assuring the dignity of the individual and unity and integrity of the country is one of the guiding principles enshrined in the preamble. Hate speech and real harm. In recent years, the world has witnessed several mass atrocities. In many of these cases, hate speech was identified as a precursor to atrocity crimes, including genocide. While the use of social media and digital platforms to spread hatred is relatively recent, the weaponization of public discourse for political gain is unfortunately not new. As history continues to show, hate speech coupled with disinformation can lead to stigmatization, discrimination, and large-scale violence. The Holocaust. The Nazi regime adopted laws and regulations to crush Germany's independent media, replacing it with state-controlled radio and print media that disseminated hate speech, anti-Semitic, racist stereotypes, disinformation, and lies. The media campaigns contributed significantly to normalizing atrocity crimes. This facilitated the Holocaust, the planned and systematic persecution and annihilation of some 6 million Jewish children, women, and men, and at least 500,000 Roma and Sinti by Nazi Germany and other racist states. The Nazi regime and its racist collaborations violated the human rights of and committed atrocity crimes against people with disabilities, Germans of African descent, LGBTQI+ people, Poles, Soviet prisoners of war, political dissenters, and Jehovah's Witnesses. The Holocaust did not start with the gas chambers, but with hate speech against a minority. The Cambodian genocide. In the 1970s, the Khmer Rouge movement of Pol Pot led an intense propaganda campaign to mobilize rural parts of the population and seize power. Hateful discourse systematically clubbed intellectuals, opponents, and city dwellers, but also Cambodia's ethnic and religious minorities as the enemies of the Cambodian people. It is estimated that 1.5 to 2 million Cambodians died under the Khmer Rouge regime from 1975 to 1979. The 1994 genocide against the Tutsi in Rwanda. In Rwanda, decades of hate speech exacerbated ethnic tensions by spreading unfounded rumors and dehumanizing ethnic Tutsi citizens. This was bolstered by hate propaganda broadcast by the infamous Radio Libre Mile Collins, which incited the Hutu majority to kill their fellow Tutsi citizens. During the ensuing 1994 genocide, it is estimated that more than 1 million people were systematically killed in less than 3 months. The victims ranged from babies to the elderly and were overwhelmingly of Tutsi ethnicity, but also moderate Hutu, Twa, and other individuals who opposed the genocide. An estimated 150,000 to 250,000 women were also raped. The Srebrenica genocide in Bosnia and Herzegovina. The enabling role of hatred and disinformation campaigns in inciting and legitimizing war crimes has also been established in the Bosnian War, 1992 to 1995. In Serbian majority areas, constant nationalist propaganda through party-controlled media demonized the Bosnian Muslim population and other groups as violent fundamentalist enemies plotting against the Serbs. Dissent was also silenced. In July 1995, in just a matter of days, Serbian forces killed 8,000 Bosnian Muslim men and boys in the town of Srebrenica, a Muslim enclave in eastern Bosnia and a safe area under UN protection. The Bosnian war left more than 1 lakh people dead and 20,000 missing. A quarter of a century later, hate speech, the glorification of war criminals, and the denial of genocide and other atrocity crimes are still rampant, including in political discourse and in the media, highlighting the failure to comprehensively confront the past. The Rohingya refugee crisis in Myanmar, a campaign of hate and misinformation loaded with derogatory and dehumanizing language against the Rohingya Muslim minority of the country has been linked to the commission of grave human rights violations committed in Myanmar from 2012 to 2017. The Independent International Fact-Finding Mission on Myanmar, established by the United Nations Human Rights Council, released a report documenting the widespread hate propaganda led by state officials, politicians, military, and religious leaders. It also found systematic atrocities such as killing, rape, and gang rape, torture, forced displacement, and other grave rights violations against the Rohingya minority. It is estimated that tens of thousands of people have been raped. By August 2018, more than 7,25,000 Rohingya had fled to Bangladesh, creating the fastest growing refugee crisis in the world. Why tackle hate speech? Hate speech is a denial of the values of tolerance, inclusion, diversity, and the very essence of human rights norms and principles. It may expose those targeted to discrimination, abuse, and violence, but also social and economic exclusion. When left unchecked, expressions of hatred can even harm societies, peace, and development, as it lays the ground for conflict, tensions, and human rights violations, including atrocity crimes. Addressing and countering hate speech is therefore a necessity. It requires a holistic approach, mobilizing society as a whole, all individuals and organizations including governments, the private sector, media, internet corporations, faith leaders, educators, youth, and civil society have a moral duty to speak out firmly against hate speech and crucial role to play in countering this scourge. The preventive role of education, as history has shown, genocide and mass atrocities begin with words of hate. This underscores our collective responsibility to address hate speech today to prevent potential harm tomorrow. But countering hate speech effectively requires a holistic approach that goes beyond legislation. It must also focus on prevention. Tackling the issue of hate speech from an educational perspective involves strengthening educational policies and programs with specific measures to address and counter hate speech. As online environments have become echo chambers for hateful rhetoric, strengthening digital literacy as part of global citizenship education has become even more important than ever. Audiences need to know how to critically analyze and counteract hate speech, both offline or online. In the digital world, media and information literacy is a key tool to build our resilience against hate speech. It empowers citizens with critical thinking skills to access information and develop a sense of responsibility for one's online behavior. Take action. Engage. How to deal with hate speech. There are many ways you can take a stand. Even if you are not personally the victim of hate speech and you can make a difference, the following tips may be helpful. Pause. Refrain from making any hateful comments yourself and or relying such content. Whether online or offline, we should all act responsibly to stop the spread of hate and misinformation. Fact check. In the digital world, it's common to come across misinformation and harmful content, but it's relatively easy to verify content you find is reliable. To detect false and biased information, including hate speech propaganda, be sure to check the content's origin with the help of search engines, fact-checking tools, and other reliable sources. You can also download images and run them through image search tools to find out where they appeared first. React. Whenever possible, do not remain silent, even when it is others who are targeted. Speak up calmly but firmly against hate speech and call it out to make clear that you do not agree with the content of the statement. When relevant, refute misinformation with facts. Provide reliable sources to back up your argument. Challenge. One way to tackle hate speech is to spread your own counter speech to make sure hate is not the dominant narrative. You can undermine hateful content with positive messages that spread tolerance, equality, and truth in defense of those being targeted by hate. Support. Taking a public stand for and extending solidarity to people who are the targets of hate speech demonstrates that rejecting hate is the responsibility of every individual. Report. Most online platforms and communities have rules to keep user discussion respectful and will let you easily report hate messages to administrators or moderators. Read social media platform guidelines and tips to protect users from harassment and hate speech. For more serious cases which may constitute incitement to violence, harassment and or threats prohibited by law, notify organizations fighting hate speech and or file a complaint with police or the public prosecutor. Some countries have online tools to make reporting hate speech easier. Educate. You can help raise awareness of hate speech online or offline, simply by engaging with your family and friends in conversations about how hateful content can harm societies. Advocate for responsible behavior and share public campaigns and educational resources. Commit. Consider joining an NGO or other civil society initiative that works to address the issue of hate speech in your community.